Shalom, everyone. This is Rabbi Allen, and we are continuing this week with our Torah portions, Yeshua in the Torah. Before we get to it, let me just remind people, and I have to remind people every week, just a quick reminder that my book, The Hidden Secrets of the Passover Haggadah, is available at Amazon, and there's a link below, just below the description of this week's portion, and you can get a copy of it. And it's because it's a great thing to know this information well before we get into the Passover season, and before we actually open up our Haggadahs at our Passover Seder. It's good to know these secret gems and life-changing things well before we sit down at that Seder. So, okay, enough of the promo. So this week our Torah portion is Terumah, offering, and it's from Exodus 25:1 through 27:19, and the corresponding Haftarah portion is 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 2 through 34. And so this week's portion really talks about the tabernacle and the furnishings of the tabernacle. So the tabernacle was called, in Hebrew, the Mishkan, and this chapter really deals with all of the different furnishings and the things within the tabernacle and how it is set up. And certainly we read about that special place, the Holy of Holies, where God's Shekhinah, God's presence, comes down into the Holy of Holies and actually dwells there. So this is a very special place. Not only does he have Moses instruct the children of Israel to erect this Mishkan for the sacrificial system, but also he does it because he wants a place to dwell with his people. And so we have to understand that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and then eventually the temple that is built in Jerusalem is the very, very center of Jerusalem's city, but it is the very center of Jewish life. By the way, not only is Jerusalem, not only is the tabernacle in the center of Jerusalem, but Jerusalem is in the center of Israel. And so Israel, if you look at a map as it is spread out, Israel is in the very center. So our tabernacle, which will one day be the temple, will be the very center of the world, the center of Israel, the center of Judaism, and God wanted it to be the center of our lives. And so he wanted us, as a very centrality thing, is to really understand how to come to him through what went on in the tabernacle and in the temple, and that was the blood sacrifice. So this way, man and God could come together, and as the Shekhinah would come into the temple, and the high priest would bring the blood into the Holy of Holies in the temple. That was this very special time where the high priest atoned for the entire nation of Israel. And again, it was through the blood of the sacrifice. So let me just mention this is from Leviticus chapter 16 and 17. And Leviticus chapter 16 and 17 are the instructions for Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the Holy of Holy, the holiest of holy days, the day where that high priest would bring the sacrifice, the blood of the sacrifice, into the Shekhinah, the Holy of Holies, and before the Shekhinah, and it would atone for the sins of the entire nation of Israel. And so also in Leviticus 17, it tells us something very, very special about the sanctity of the blood of the sacrifices. And so we read in Leviticus 17:11, God said, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I will give it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls." And then he repeats it. When God repeats something, you know it's very, very important, and he wants you to understand it. He repeats it and he says, "For it is the blood that makes atonement for your souls." And so what we have here is we have this parallel thing, as I've said so often, that God has physical things and physical events that parallel the spiritual world. And so basically what God is telling Moses and Israel, that blood actually has a dual purpose. It gives us life physically, and it gives us spiritual life, because it is for the atonement of our sins upon the altar. So this is a basic precept of the Torah. This is what God wanted the children of Israel to know thousands of years ago. That is only by the blood that our sins are atoned for. And so, God allowed the temple to be destroyed 2,000 years ago. And then he gave the children of Israel an entire generation, a little under 40, 50, 60, 70, yes, a little under 40 years to have the Jewish people to make a decision. What were they going to do now that they didn't have their temple anymore? And the decision was, because God had offered to the children of Israel his son Yeshua as a sacrifice. And so he gave them an entire generation to make that final decision. And then he destroyed the temple so that they could not bring sacrifices to the temple again. And so not only does the Torah tell us about how important the Messiah to come will be, but all throughout the Jewish history, we see time and time again the prophets pointing us to this very, very truth, that the only way that we can have our sins atoned for is by the blood atonement, and that today is only available by the blood of Messiah Yeshua. So that is it for this week. If you like the video this week, please share it with friends. You can copy and paste the address above in a link, send it to friends by email. If you're looking at this YouTube through your Facebook page, you can certainly share this post on your page or on your profile page, and your friends and family will be able to have access to it. And if they want to watch it, they can certainly watch it. At least you give them the opportunity to see it and the opportunity to watch it if they would like to. Also below there is a button where you can become part of the channel Rabbi on the Fly. You can either click on below on Rabbi on the Fly. It'll give you all access to all the videos that I have done. You could actually subscribe. There's a subscribe button down there, and you can subscribe, and there's a little bell there, and then you'll be notified every week when I put out these videos. Okay? So we're all set. We've got it all together here. Until next week, this is Rabbi Allen, and I am bidding you shalom, shalom.